Good day everyone. I, Muhammad Nasim Firdaus, would like to welcome you once again in our slide narration. And today we have this particular topic, Pragmatics, all about the application of a language. Before we start, I would like to inform you that the information depicted here mostly taken from George Yule, a very little from Charles F. Mayer and other sources. And today we will only go through some major aspects of pragmatics. So I would like to invite you and request you to be here till the last slide of this narration, and definitely these slides are prepared by me. So let's start. Let's see what we will have in our contents. First, we would like to know about pragmatics. Then we'll be trying to differentiate between semantics and pragmatics, and then we will be looking the other aspects of pragmatics, and those are invisible meaning, context, and deixis. And of course we'll be talking about the place of pragmatics in language as well in between the slides, in between slides which are presented in this particular narration. So first we would like to know, what is pragmatics? What does it start? Let's see. Okay, I think this is a familiar sentence. This is a familiar sentence in the sense that if you have already visited other slide which is on semantics, if you have gone through, then it will be a familiar one. So please do remember this thing. But we already know that it doesn't have a semantic meaning. So if it doesn't have a semantic meaning, then why have we brought it in pragmatics? Because it can be true if I set a context. If I have a context, if I place a context, then I can say that it can be happening. But let's recall about semantic meaning. We know that the cow is a subject. It has to have the ability to fly in order to have semantic meaning in this sentence. So we know that the cow doesn't have the ability to fly in the sky. That is why these words will not go through or will not affiliate or connect with these words. That's why we said in the previous narration or slide that it will not consist a semantic meaning. So if it doesn't consist of semantic meaning, then how come it has meaning in context? Okay, let me set you a context. The context is, for example, we are in a fairy tale, yes, and the animals can fly in that fairy world. Maybe in a cartoon, maybe in a fairy movie, or maybe in any way. Maybe it's a fairy tale where the cow can fly. So if I give you such context that there is a fairy tale, that there is a fairy land where people are a little bit of different than what we get in our real life, and the animals in there have the ability to fly in the sky, and we have one particular animal which is very resembled to cow, or we can say that is a cow. Now, if we put that sentence after that situation, after the context, we can say that yes, we can use this particular sentence, the cow flies in the sky. So that's what we are referring to. So let's go to the theoretical background of pragmatics. So it is all about these three major issues: meaning dimensions, lexical relations, and semantic roles. And all these things help to review to the previous topic. So for example, if I have a context, I have to relate it with the previous topic, and then I had to relate with meaning dimensions, and then semantic roles and lexical relations. And having all this set together, we can have a pragmatics or pragmatical meaning in a context, in a sentence maybe, or in a phrase. We can identify the pragmatical meaning. So we know, we need all of these issues. We need to know about the meaning dimensions, we need to know the semantic roles, we need to know lexical relations, and most importantly, we need to know the previous topic. That's what we are saying. If we know that yes, there is a book which is on fairy tale, or there is a movie, or there is a cartoon which is on fairy tale, and then we can set the context, and then we can say yes, the cow flies in the sky in that fairyland. So when we would be looking at pragmatics, we have these issues in there: context, interlocutor's status, register, cross-cultural differences, semantics and syntax, utterance inferences, utterance interpretation, non-verbal communication. Interestingly, you know that pragmatics is one of the components of a language, but it is not connected with the structural issue. Pragmatics is not connected structurally when we are talking about the components of a language. Rather, its main focus is on giving context in a linguistic situation, in a conversation. And then we need to understand how this meaning comes and adjust or adapt in a linguistic situation. So that's why under pragmatics we have all these issues. Though pragmatics doesn't deal with directly with the structural framework of a language, but without pragmatics we cannot use it. We cannot use a language without pragmatics. It is very much related with the socio-cultural issues as well. So not only socio-cultural issues, it is one of the issues. We have many different issues. That's what we are going to look in this particular slide narration. So pragmatics is the study of speaker meaning. What does the speaker want to mean? The contextual meaning, what is the context in there? The expression of relative distance. So we would like to know the expression and among the speaker, among the situation, among the previous context. We would like to know that. And how we interpret utterances in situational context and focuses on what is not explicitly stated. So we are going to interpret the message or utterances, and we will put that in a situational context, and we will focus on what the speakers or speaker wants or wanted to mean, rather than what they said or uttered. And this is described by Yule 2010. So pragmatics deals with meaning, which depends on context and the communicative intentions of the speakers. So you need to understand what is the context, you need to identify the situation, and of course you need to identify the intentions of the speakers. What are the speakers' intention? What the speakers want to mean? That's you need to know. So pragmatics considers language as an instrument of interaction. So it will help you to establish an interaction among the speakers. So it will be working as an instrument in interaction. So pragmatics is, we can say that understanding how people communicate is actually a process of interpreting not just what the speaker says, but what they intend to mean. So that is our section in here. So we will be looking at not only speakers say, we will not be looking at what does the speakers want to mean, rather we'll be looking at what they wanted to mean, intended to mean, what this, rather than what they say, we'd like to know what that particular means. Okay, let me give you an example before give you an example in the next slide. For example, you are sitting all together with your family in a dinner, and one of your seniors, maybe your father, maybe your mother, maybe your uncle, or maybe your elder brother or sister, told you or requested you, or in any means, he or she just said it, saying or stating your name, like, Nasim, can you please pass the salt? So if we just look at the sentence, if we just focus on the words in the sentence, it gives us the meaning that the speaker wants my ability, whether I can do or not, can I pass it or not. So he or she tries to know my ability. So if I say yes I can brother, yes I can father, yes I can mother, if I say this particular phrase or sentence or expression, that will mean that I understood semantics, but I did not understand pragmatics, because the intention of that particular sentence uttered by my senior, by my father or my brother or mother, is that he wanted me to pass the salt rather than my ability, rather than knowing my ability. So we will be looking at the intention of the speaker, and that's what we will be referring under pragmatics. So what are the difference between semantics and pragmatics? How will we differentiate them? First, we would like to say that relationship of words. Under semantics, we say that we'll be looking at the relationship of words. We have seen synonym, antonym, hyponym in there, and we try to deal with the relationship of words. But under pragmatics, we will not only look at the words, but the speakers and the context as well. We will blend all these three together, and we will try to figure the meaning. Under semantics, interpret the meaning of words to create meaningful sentence. The main focus is to create a meaningful sentence which will give the ability to do. Maybe the subject we will be looking at or focusing on, whether the subject can do the things or not. But under pragmatics, we will be considering the contextual factors, speaker's meaning, and listener's suggestion as well. Not only speaker's meaning, but also listener's suggestion. What are the listeners are expecting? That will be an issue if we try to figure pragmatical meaning. And then Under semantics, it concentrates on the meanings of expressions. Meanings of expression. So it will concentrate on the meaning, mainly on the based on the meaning of expressions. But under pragmatics, focus on the connection between the language uttered and the context in which it is used. So not only the language, not only the sentences, words, phrases, but we also need to understand the context as well. I mean, in which context I have used this one. For example, if I say, give me this pen, it is more likely water. So you can use this particular sentence and whenever you are talking with your younger brother, you are ordering your younger brother, but you cannot say this to your father. So you need to understand the context and the speakers and the relationship as well. Can be placed in the grammar domain with a linguistic system. So of course, whenever we'll be dealing with semantics, we need to understand the linguistic system, and we will place the grammatical domain along with linguistic system to identify the semantics. So we need both syntax and semantics together to have the meaning. But under pragmatics, it can be placed in the speech making domain. So in a speech context, in a linguistic speech context, whenever some people are conversating in a context, we need to understand the context, and in that particular speech making domain we can place pragmatics. And semantics is more likely rule governed. There will be more rules in there, but under pragmatics we will have principle, so that will be based on some principles in there, so ideology in there, in order to run or study or learn pragmatics. So look at this pictures. Look at these pictures. So one picture stating heated attendant parking, and another is baby and toddler. So what do you understand? Heated attendant. Attendant, most of the time we refer the person as attendant. So parking, that means are we talking about a person who is heated, high temperature, and we want the person to park? Is that what we mean? And here baby and toddler, in the background we can see the sail, SALE. So are we talking about the babies is sailing the babies? That's what we try to mean. Can we do that? Okay, but let's see what other we can do it or not. Okay, so pragmatics, under pragmatics we need to understand the meaning which is not stated. That's what we referred earlier. We will be looking at the intention, we'll be looking at the intended meaning, what these particular pictures try to mean. We will be looking at how we recognize what is meant even when it is not actually said or written. So there are not much words which will explicitly state what does these pictures mean. So we need lots of assumptions, we need lots of expectations is need to understand, to communicate what does it mean. So we need to identify heated attendant made parking, and we would like to have the other context as well in order to understand what does they mean. So what does they mean? So maybe it means about the car parking. So of course heated attendant, we are referring to cars, and baby and toddler means we will be having the meaning of that maybe baby's trays or dolls. So anything related with babies and toddlers will be sold in. So how will we interpret pragmatical meaning or invisible meaning? So what's the structure? So first we would like to go with use the meanings of the words, then we'll be forwarding to the context in which they occur, and then some pre-existing knowledge of what would be a likely message. So we're referring pre-existing knowledge. Maybe you were in front of a shop and you have seen the poster or the banner having this one, and you have seen lots of baby dresses or toys in there. So those pre-existing knowledge, and then working towards a reasonable interpretation of what the procedures listen to convey. So of course you need to have a reasonable interpretation. So if you do not have this kind of interpretation, if you do not understand all the things is in there, it will be very challenging for you to understand what the speakers try to mean. So you need all this information before you interpreting the message, before interpreting and what the speakers try to mean. Okay, now we have another dialogue, say A and B, just 4 sentences. First one said, I have a 14-year-old son. Well, that's all right. I also have a dog. Oh, I'm sorry. So the thing is that if you want to just this particular 4 sentence without having other things, what is said before that, what are the contexts, who is A, who is B, what is the relation between A and B, and where are they talking about, you will have lots of challenges, lots of difficulties to understand. But if I give you some context, for example, maybe a person A is trying to rent a house and person B is the owner of a house. So if I give you this context, and if I give you the another context is that person B or the owner of the house do not the owner of the house doesn't like dogs, or there are some restrictions in his house about carrying or petting a dog. So and this person wanted to rent the house. Then they say that I have a 14-year-old son, and then the owner of the house said that, well, that's all right, that's not a problem. Then but when he explored that he or she has a dog as well, then then the owner of the house said, oh, I'm sorry, that will mean that he or she cannot rent the house to the person A, or it could be in another situation as well. But considering my context, you can easily apply or utilize or use this particular conversation in that context. So what is context? What do I understand by context? Context of an utterance consists of a speaker, the sentence which is uttered, the act performed in the uttering of sentence, and the hearer. So lots of the issues are there. So we need to understand, and the utterance consists of speaker, the sentence which is uttered, we need to know the complete sentence, the act of performed in the uttering sentence, so we need to know the act, and the hearer as well. So we also need the expectation of the listener. If the listener is not expecting what you are saying, then it will be very hard to understand. You can take an example considering the previous slide where I have said about those 4 sentences. Before saying in the context, you might not have understood what could be the meaning from that particular dialogue. So 5 fundamental categories for context information. So if we want to have the information for the entity, you need the time, you need location, you need activity, you need relations, you need individuality. So having these all 5 categories, you will have the contextual information. So you need to identify or gather information about all these things to have a meaning in a context. So we have 2 contexts. One is linguistic context and another is physical context. Under linguistic context, which is also known as context, is can be defined like this. Context of a word is the set of other words used in the same phrase or sentence. So whenever we are referring context, we are referring as some text together, and we need to understand the relationship between those phrases. And context has a strong effect on what we think the word probably means. We need to understand and what that particular word probably mean based on the other linguistic references. Linguistics, by referring linguistic references, we are referring and the other words. We need to figure the meaning by understanding the other words or phrases in a sentence or in a phrase as well. So another one is physical context. We know how to interpret words on the basis of physical context. So whenever we are saying something, we are doing something, we are in a situation, and we can interpret the message as by referring the situation in there. Whether we are in a house or outside, we can say lots of things in there. And of course, the physical location influences our interpretation as well. So whenever we have the physical location in there, definitely that will influence us, that will impact on our interpretation. And how will you do that? Let's have an example. So here we will have a context or linguistic context. He is sitting beside the bank of Buriganga. So if you know the word, what does the word mean, Buriganga, you know that it is one of the rivers in Bangladesh. And whenever we are referring the bank of Buriganga and sitting beside the bank of Buriganga, that means you will understand he is not in a physical bank, or rather he is beside a river. And in another sentence, she has to get to the bank to cash a check. So whenever you will be referring the check, cash, bank, you will make a meaning based on these words in this particular sentence, and you will be understanding that yes, we are referring as a bank. And under physical context, if you see the word bank on the wall of a building in a city, the physical location will influence your interpretation. For example, you are in front of a bank. Bank means an institution, organization, where it is written on the banner or in the font that it is a bank. And then you are talking with your friends. You are saying that yes, I need a lot of money. So that will mean that you will be going to a bank and you will be withdrawing money. So that interpretation will be based on the physical context. And by understanding this, we can refer linguistic context and physical context, which are the parts of context. So we have another pragmatic references, and that is deixis. Deixis. In order to understand deixis, let's look at this particular sentence. You will have to bring it back tomorrow because she isn't here today. Okay, how will you interpret? If I don't say anything rather than this sentence, you might not understand anything. First, you. The question is, who is you? To bring it, what does it mean? You could be maybe you, maybe my brother, maybe my sister, or anyone. It could be anyone. If we don't know the sentence before or the context in here, we cannot interpret who is you. It, we also don't know it. Tomorrow, we don't know what is tomorrow. In order to understand tomorrow, we need to know what is today. And she, we don't know who she is. We do not have the name. We don't have the names. We don't know whom are we talking about. Here. So what is here? So if I say come here, and if you say come here, do you believe that we are referring the same place? Definitely not. We are not talking about the same place. Which is here for me cannot be here for you. And of course today as well, you need to understand the person and when did he or she stated the sentence, because based on that you can say what that day is. So we have 1 question mark, we have 2 question marks, 3 question marks, 4, 5 and 6. We have 6 question marks, and we do not know what they mean unless we have understanding of other situations. What will that mean? So some very common words in a language that cannot be interpreted at all if we don't know the context, especially the physical context of the speaker. So do not make it or mix it with context, because by referring physical context we are referring actually the immediate physical context. So that's why we are saying that they contain a large number. So that means whenever referring deixis references, they contain a large number of expressions that rely on knowledge of the immediate physical context for the interpretation. We need to know the immediate physical context. We need to know whom are we talking about, what are the things we are talking about, in where are we talking about, when are we talking about, and all this information, all these questions are known as didactic expression. So we will be, if we know the didactic expression, it will help us to understand what does that mean. So deixis is a reference by means of an expression whose interpretation is related to the extra linguistic context of the utterance. We are referring extra linguistic context. So we cannot just focus on the sentences in there. We cannot say he is there. We cannot understand the meaning based on these words. We cannot do that. There are relations in there, but we cannot give you a meaning if we do not know what does those mean. So we need extra linguistic context, and didactic expressions have to be interpreted in terms of what person, place, and time the speaker has in mind. So we need 3: person, place, and time. These 3 questions need to be answered if you want to understand what the speaker has in his or her mind. So we have, based on the information, we have three deixis: person deixis, spatial deixis, temporal deixis. They're very easy to understand. Person refers to the people, spatial deixis refer to the location, and temporal deixis refers to the point of time. So we need people, location, and time. We need the people, we need the location, where, here or there, where, and we of course need when, now, then, when. If we have these informations in there, then we can understand the meaning. If we know what do we mean by you, on these, and here, and now, then we can understand what does that mean. Can we replace this word? Yes, you can replace this word. For example, Nasim will put the pen on the table at 8:30 p.m. Okay, so that means that we have Nasim in reference to you. In replacement of you, we have this. We have the pen in place of this, and we have on the desk in place of here, and we have at 8 p.m. on place of now. So by referring these things, we know we are referring now at 8 p.m. here on the desk, and this the pen, and you as Nasim. So if you have this information, that means person, spatial, and temporal deixis, then you can definitely interpret the meaning. Okay, we have more pragmatics to understand. Pragmatical references. Under references we have inference, anaphora, presupposition, and under speech we have direct and indirect speech, and under politeness, negative and positive phase. So all these things are important. And interestingly, whenever people knowing English, people who has some kind of skill in English, and they move to an English speaking country, still they are referred as impolite. They do not have manner. That's what they are referred to, because of the application of pragmatics. They do not know what to use, how to use, what to say, how to say, in which context, and that's why politeness is important. You need to understand what does negative or positive phase mean. So you need to know all of the things under pragmatics. Okay, maybe another day. Yes, maybe another day. That's all for today. We have invisible meaning, we have context, and under context we have physical context, and that is and linguistic context, which is also referred as yes, it's a linguistic or physical context in there, linguistic and physical context. And under deixis we have person deixis, temporal deixis as in there. So that's what we have, person, spatial and temporal deixis. We have those information in there, and that will be all for pragmatics. So I believe you have understand what pragmatics is. So that will be all. So at the reference, mainly we have followed this one and different sources as well. And the questions, definitely I am expecting questions. Please do that in forum, and I always recommend you to go through these particular slides at the beginning of the week, which will help you to understand and raise questions, and this will also help me to answer your questions as well. So please do that. So thank you very much for everything, and for being present, and for the last 36 minutes to be precise. Thank you all.